Welcome to Spiritual Changemakers, the podcast that guides you through tough times with practical tools and inspiring stories. I'm Andrea Thomas, your host and the Sacred Transitions Coach. Join us as we hear from spiritual changemakers who have connected with their higher power and overcame adversity. Whether you are navigating a difficult transition or seeking to deepen your spiritual practice, our podcast provides guidance to help you find magic in the change. Come on this journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and transformation with us and unlock your potential to become your best self.
Welcome, my beautiful souls, to a new podcast episode on spiritual changemakers. Wow, so much has happened. If you have been listening to my last podcast episodes, you've seen that I did level 1 of rebirth, breath work, and today is the first day after I finished my level 2 of breath work of the rebirth. And wow, 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 wow. It's been so transformational. And as I was coming here to record this podcast episode for you, I was feeling so emotional, and probably you still gonna feel my emotions right now as I'm talking, because today I'm not gonna talk to you about what has happened in my level 2 of my training. I'm still gonna take some time to integrate and digest, and after that I will do an episode where I will give you a beautiful overview with lessons, transformations, and so on. And today I actually want to talk to you about debt. And the reason I was feeling so emotional is because I'm doing this episode right now and sharing with you how I have changed my relationship with debt, how I have changed my relationship with money, while still currently I am in financial debt. And it's not a small amount. And I feel so vulnerable, so raw, and so terrified to share this with you. And at the same time, I know I have to do it for me to free myself out of the fear of the judgment of what people are gonna say, what people are gonna think if they would know the truth, you know. And I know also for you that if you're listening to this podcast episode, that means there is something in it for you, and is going to help you, change you, and transform your relationship with debt and money. So I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of how I have been with money throughout my life and how I got to the point of getting myself in financial debt. So I highly encourage you to stay until the end and listen until the end of the podcast, because I'm going to give you some practical tips that you can take and apply in your life if right now you feel like your relationship with money is not the greatest, or maybe you are in the same situation like me and you just want to change your relationship with debt. So a little bit of an overview of my relationship with money. So, as most of you, if you have been listening to and following my journey, you know that I'm originally from Romania and I moved to USA when I was 24 years old. And actually, next week is my birthday on December 5th. Oh my God, I cannot believe I will be 35. So it'll be 10 years since I actually left from home. And I grew up in this family where my dad was, I would say, good with money, but quite stingy. Like he would always have money, but he wouldn't spend on himself, he wouldn't spend on us. He would always have this mentality of I need to save, I need to save, I need to save money for the future, for black days. It's something like a saying we have in Romania. So my dad would always be like retaining, make money. He would always work, he would always make money, but he would keep them and save them, like hoard them. So that's my dad. And my mom, she would spend everything she would have, and even more than that. Like, she would take money from other people and buy stuff, especially for us, because my dad wouldn't really give her money to buy us clothes and shoes and so on. So I grew up in kind of like, for Romania at that time, was like a moderate, a middle class family. So, as I started embarking on my journey with being a teenager and then having my own money, I was more like my dad, where since I was little, my mom would give me money to save, to buy snacks, to buy lunch at school. And what I would do, I would make my lunch at home and I would save the money. I would put them on the side because I was like, I want to travel. Like, since I was a little girl, my dream was to travel. So I was like, I want to travel. And what did I knew at that time? I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go and travel to my cousin who's like 2 hours away from here, but was still traveling, was still going away from my hometown. And I knew my mom and my dad wouldn't have the money to give me, so I would just save them. So from that moment on, I would constantly save money. And my dad would be so happy and so proud because I have two other brothers, two older brothers, and he would be like, you are the only one that is like me. You are the only one that is responsible with money. And I was like, yeah, that feels good. But at the same time, I was feeling judged. I was feeling judged by some of my cousins, and even in one of my breathworks, it came through how when I was little, one of my cousins, she asked, I don't know, money for me or for me to buy her a pack of cigarette. I do not remember. And then she told me and she threw to me that you are like exactly like your dad with money, which she perceived it as a bad thing. And I that memory stuck with me, and I was like, oh, but I do not want to be like my dad, because I would say I didn't know which one is good or bad, because as we grew up, we don't know. So what we do, we match what we see. And I was like, oh, but I do not want to be like my dad. I do not want to just constantly worry about money and just save them but not really live. But I don't want to be like my mom either, who just spends everything she has. Anyhow, I grew up, I went to university, and since I went to university, my second year at the university, I went to US to work. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to work and I'm not going to ask for any money from my mom, because she was the one that was supporting me for the first year of university financially in school. My dad didn't want me to leave and to go in another city. And because my mom left when I was 14 years old, she was in Italy and she would send me money to support me and my brother. I was like, I do not want to be a burden anymore for my mom either. So I want to support myself financially. So I started going to the US, and the first summer was okay-ish. I was able only to work one job. I had a lot of challenges going there, like with the visa, with, oh my gosh, I've spent so much money the first year to get there that I barely make any money back. But then I understood how things work, and I was like, okay, next year I'm gonna go again and I'm going to work in a restaurant, because that's where you make a lot of money, you make a lot of tips in the States. So guess what? That's exactly what I did. There I was, second summer. I went to the States in, first summer was in North Carolina. And second summer was in Tennessee. And I actually ended up going so crazy without a contract, without a work contract, because I went so late after I finished my exams. And for me, the priority was school. But I just knew that I'm gonna find a job. And of course, like from the first day I arrived there, I was like, today I'm gonna find a job. And I didn't just find one job, I actually found two jobs. So I ended up in that summer in Tennessee, my second summer in the States, to work two jobs. There was 1 month where I had three jobs in restaurants. And I made a bunch of money. I don't even remember, probably 10,000 in that summer, which was like many, many years ago. And starting that moment on, I became financially independent. Like, I'm like, that was my goal, that was my purpose. And I didn't have to ask any more money ever from my mom. So I was like, yes, success. So then I was keep going to the States, making money, then supporting myself financially through university and masters. And after masters, I decided to move to the States because I was like, wow, this is quite cool. I can make quite a lot of money. I found a beautiful community in Lake Tahoe where I moved. And I don't really want to stay in Romania. And I don't want to go anywhere in Europe. So there I was at 24. I decided to move to US with $2,000 in my pocket because that's how much I had left after I spent throughout the year at university to support myself. So yes, I embarked and I moved there and I started working like crazy. Like, oh my gosh, I would work 6 to 7 hours a day and I will make a bunch of money because I worked in the restaurants. So I'll make a lot of money throughout the month, but I didn't have any life. So all I did was work, 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 work. And I had my partner who passed away that we would spend Sunday together. And that's it. The rest, both of us, we would just work like crazy. And then 1 year after I moved to the States, I had this near death experience that if you have listened to my previous episodes, I have spoke in one of the episodes about my near death experience where I went with my partner to EDC. It's like electronic music festival. And I ended up taking a substance. I don't want to name it, but a substance that a lot of people take at music festivals. And I had no freaking idea that I have an allergy. So I had a seizure and I ended up being in coma in the hospital for 2 freaking days. And not just that, but imagine that I had no medical insurance and the ambulance took me and then I stayed in the hospital for 2 days. So my medical bills were out of this roof. And it's very true what you have heard about US that if you deal with the medical system and you have no insurance, you're screwed. You are screwed. And that's what happened to me. So I ended up receiving medical bills, I think 1 year after. And I don't know, I kept them for a very long time. Honestly, I don't know if I still have them in the States. I would be very curious to see if I do. But I had probably $40,000 in debt in medical bills. And I applied for for some financial help. But still, I had a lot to pay. And after that, I was so freaking mad. Like, I was ashamed. I was going through guilt. I was like, my God, how the heck am I going to now? I'm just going to work to pay these medical bills. I was mad. I was mad at God. I was mad at the medical system. I was mad at everything. But I was like, oh, well, now I'm just going to work my ass off and pay these medical bills. So that's what I did. And I think in just a few months, by working super hard, like 2 restaurant jobs, I was able to pay my medical bills. And 1 year or so after, a big shift happened there because I realized that I actually prioritized money more than my life. I thought that money are more important than my life. And that was like such a big realization because I was like, I cannot believe it. Like, I am alive. I was given a second chance to life. And while I am here on this planet, I can make as much money as I want, but no amount of money can actually buy my life. And then I truly started to find this gratitude for being given a second chance to life. And that's when I started embarking on searching what is my purpose. And I came across coaching and so on, but it took me years to find that and to come to that point. And stick with me because I'll get to the depth as well, but it's important to see the story behind it and to see how we get to the point where we get. And then what happened is that my partner later on got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it was a super super hard and beautiful journey. But after he passed away, after he transitioned, I decided to start traveling the world. And I didn't work for the time that he was sick because he was very sick and I was his only caregiver. So I decided to pause my business because I started my business in 2019, 2020, something like that. So I paused my business. I didn't have a job anymore and I was just taking care of him. So you can imagine that money would go out of the window super fast, like with the treatments, with the cost of living, with everything. But after he transitioned, I was like, I have to do it. I have to start traveling the world. I don't have a lot of money left because I also invested a lot in my house. I actually 4 years after I moved to the States, I remember I made this goal of saving $100,000, and I did it. And after I did that, I was like, okay, and now what am I doing with the money? I had no idea what to do with the money. And I made like the wish and the request to the universe that I want to invest it. Show me, give me a way on how I can invest this money. And the opportunity to buy the house that we were staying in, the condo that we were staying in, came through. And I was so afraid to do it. I was terrified to buy that house because I was like, wow, a commitment with mortgage, with such a high mortgage for 30 years. And wow. But I did it. And I bought a house 4 years after I moved to the States with a 20% down payment. Like that's how it works in the States. And yeah, I'm super, super proud. I still have at the moment that place there in Tahoe that I'm renting. And it has helped me also feel more of so that I have a base. So going back to the travels, I was like, I don't have a lot of money left after my partner passed, but I really want to travel. So I decided at the beginning to Airbnb my house. I invested a lot in my house to upgrade it, to make it like an Airbnb. Because I was thinking I'm gonna live for 6 months to maximum 1 year, and that then I will go back. And I was like, I want to have the flexibility to go back anytime I want. And that was part of why I did Airbnb. And it was such a learning curve also to have a Airbnb business. But yeah, after the travels, I that was my healing journey that I embarked on. So one of my intentions was like to trust, to surrender, and to release control. So I would ask God, universe, to just guide me where to go, what to do for my own healing journey. And I started with Romania, where I took the ashes of my partner. And from there, I went to Egypt, then Dubai, then Thailand, Bali, and just like my travel started. And I would go to healers and I would do like things for my own healing pretty much in every place I went to. But what do you think started happening? I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the drive. I didn't have the fire for the longest time to work because I was so, so depleted after my partner passed, because I gave my 110% to him while he was alive, and we were on the cancer treatment for 9 months, that I was very depleted. So I didn't have the energy to work in my business. I didn't have the energy to look for a job or work in a job. And my desire was to travel and nourish myself. So I ended up starting spending all my savings, and almost all of my savings. And then I would just start paying with my credit cards because, like being from the States, you have credit cards, which is you borrow money that you have to pay up. Of course, you have to pay back. And then they get a big interest, and they charge you an amount of money, a minimum that you have to pay every single month. And I was like, it's not that much, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And then I would just spend, and I would totally ignore my bank accounts. Like, I was like, I don't want to look there. I still have a little bit of savings, but I prefer to like spend from my credit cards because um, why not to have those savings for like black days, how my dad used to say. So I was just spending and spending and spending until I got myself in this point to be like over $20,000 in debt in my credit cards, which is insane, insane. Wow, like so much came through for me, so many lessons, so much learning from being in this situation. Because as you've heard, I've always been good with money, and I grew up as this very good girl, good daughter, super responsible, who would never screw up. Yeah. And I used to be like my dad for a very long period of time. And I used to judge a lot my mom and my brothers for not being as good as me and my dad were with money. And I would always be like, I just don't get it. How do you guys get yourself to never have money, or, whatever? I would just criticize and judge, especially them. And now, being on the other side, on the flip side of the coin, it's been so humbling. And wow, like I have chills even just sharing this, because it helps me understand not only my family, but each and every person now that I'm supporting and coaching at a so much deeper level, because I understood this chapter. It's a chapter that I had to go. I'm the one that decided to get to this point. And it's so important if you're dealing with any debt, to take responsibility for being there. Accept that that's where you are in the moment, and they take responsibility. And I have to tell you that right now I'm at a point where I actually found gratitude for my financial debt. And last year, when I started having and accumulating more and more debt, honestly, I had, I think, months where I couldn't even sleep. I was so worried. I was so ashamed for having this debt. I was feeling so guilty. I was making myself feel so bad and like a victim as well, because I was like, how the heck, Andrea, did you get yourself into this situation? You know? And I had to understand also that money is very much related to self-worth. And if you don't feel worthy of having, then you are going to repel money. You are going to block money. You have to feel worthy of receiving. It's so interesting how in these past few years, I received so much. Like, I have manifested so much. I cannot even tell you. Like, I would manifest places to stay for free tickets to events, like in value of thousands of dollars. I went to retreats where I was like just invited to go there and assist, and I ended up going for free. What else? Like, I had so many things. People would gift me their courses in value of thousands and thousands of dollars. So I would receive in these past few years that I also have been traveling a lot of abundance, like a lot, but not so much in the form of cash, of like money. And because of that, because I was so stuck into, oh, but I don't have the cash, I don't have the cash. And now I'm just accumulating this financial debt. I see that, like, I couldn't fully see all the abundance that I'm receiving actually in so many different forms. I would receive coaching for free, energy healing sessions for free. It's just like, I can swear to you right now that I have received just through these manifestations and gifts more than even what I have right now in financial debt. And things really started shifting for me on how I relate and how I see debt, how I feel around debt. When I was over 1 year ago, I was in Italy in my mom's place. I went there after I had this like huge heartbreak with a man that I loved probably the most so far in my life. And I still love, and probably I will always love him. And we were actually planning to start traveling the world together. He took a sabbatical. And, I was telling him that, yeah, but you want to travel and you have this like, he would spend much more than me when he was traveling, and I was like, I'm not at the level where you are right now financially. I'm not even sure I told him at that moment that I have financial debt. I think I might have, but I never mentioned how much or anything. And I would just tell him that I don't know if I can do it. Like, how can we do it? And I would just like, I would search to see if he can support me. And that was like, whoa. Like, I never wanted to be supported by a man, and especially when it comes financially. But it was so much more than that. It was going beyond the money, and it was truly for me more to see, can he love me for who I am right now in this chapter? Because I knew that was just a chapter in my life, and it's still just a chapter in my life. Because I've done a lot of money in the past, and I know I'm here to have a lot of wealth and also help a lot of people. And this is part of why I'm going through this process right now, to be able to understand each and every person on every spectrum that they are at. And he wouldn't say no, but he would also have this thing of like, I don't want to be taken advantage of, which I totally get it, because it happens a lot between men and women. And I know one of the reasons why I left that relationship is because he was such a mirror for me, where financially it was brought up like all of the shame and guilt that I was feeling around money, like all of it, and the worst, and to the core, and so deep. And I know that was one of the reasons why I left, because I was like, I don't want to travel with him and feel unworthy, and to feel that I cannot go places he can go because I don't have the money. And I decided that was one of the reasons I know why I left. And I was in my, besides the fact that my heart was broken, where my trust was broken with him as well. So it was like an accumulation of things. But there I was in Italy, in my mom's room, literally. And I was just like crying, and I would feel how like my heart was hurting so bad. And I was like, whoa, right now I'm at a bottom, like rope. I don't even know how to say. I'm like at the worst of the worst, where my heart is broken and I'm financially broken. I was like, two of the things, the worst things that I can deal with right now. And as I was there, I was like, okay, I really have to start shifting something. I have to change something right now. I cannot live in this constant like guilt and shame and worry around money. And this is where I'm going to start telling you the steps that I have done to fully shift and transform my relationship with debt, which, as you can see, as a result, even though it's still hard and I'm super emotional, I am able to do this podcast episode right now. I've been wanting to do this for months and months and months to share with you. It was just not the right time. I was not ready. But how I got myself ready, even though I'm still in financial debt, is through these steps that I'm going to share with you right now. So, first, I was like, okay, I have to start shifting something. Something needs to change. And I remember going on Gaia. Gaia is like a spiritual platform and so on. And I searched videos for debt. I was like, let's see, or money. Let's see what do they have around money or debt here. And I found a beautiful, like 1 hour short documentary with Katie Northrop, something like that. And I loved her. I loved her energy, and she was speaking exactly to me. You know, she's like, I was like in financial debt and how she got herself out of it. I bought her book, Money, a Love Story. And I also have learned in that process with the book, with that documentary, I was doing another course on unblocking money. I have learned that when we are rock bottom, that's the thing, rock bottom. When we are rock bottom in any area of our lives, that means it's an invitation for us to become an expert, to master that area. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, no, I don't want to master neither money, neither love, because I was like bleeding, I was like in so much pain in that moment. But I was like, okay, let's see what comes out of it. And one of the things that I have learned in the book Money, a Love Story is to really reframe and change how we look at debt. Because, first and foremost, debt, it just is. It's not good or bad. It's how we perceive it and how is the consciousness behind it. So, one of the things she helped me do is reframe how you even name debt. And instead of saying debt, is name it abundance for the value already received. And I'm going to explain this to you, what the heck this means. So for me, for example, abundance for the value already received. I received a lot of value, like a lot of experiences, because how I got myself into debt is by traveling, by going to retreats, by investing in myself and in my business. So I got a lot of value, a lot of experiences, a lot of memories. I have grown insanely in these 2 years where I have decided, okay, I am taking a risk and I'm doing this, and I trust I will figure it out. So, can you look at the debt that you make and see, okay, how did I get myself here? What did I spend on? What has actually happened? And then find the gratitude for those things that you were able to actually do as a result of having that money to even spend it. Because, for example, I consider myself so fortunate. Many people don't even have those credit cards anywhere in the world, and I still pay a super small fee every single month for that amount, compared with if you would take a loan, from anywhere. So I'm like, wow, I'm so fortunate for being able to have this opportunity and to spend this money. So that's one of the things that I accepted where I was at. I'm like, okay, I just have to accept that I got myself into this position, I got myself into this space. I cannot change it with where I'm at right now, but I can change how I feel about it and what I'm gonna do about it. So, really accept where you're at, then take responsibility. At the end of the day, you are the one that made the decisions, and life happens. It's Life just happens, and it's okay. We go through these ups and downs. But can you find it? If you cannot find yet gratitude, because remember, I did this a year ago, like where I started on this journey of changing my relationship with money. So I did it a year ago, and only a few months ago I started feeling the gratitude for my debt. So it took me a while, and if you cannot find a gratitude, it's totally okay, but can you see the value in it? Can you be neutral and be like, okay, having debt is not neither good or bad, it's just how I perceive it. So how do I want to associate myself with it? What would actually help me to shift and to change in order for me to have a different result in my life? So I did those things. Then I started like going deeper into abundance, into money, to doing courses and so on. And now I feel super at peace at it with where I'm at, and so much gratitude. And I know, just even for me, just doing right now this podcast episode, it's a huge leap, it's a huge shift. And then I worked a lot on this specific area in my training, in my breath work, in my rebirth. And I was keep asking, like, what's going on? What are the blocks there? What am I not, where am I not valuing myself? And money, a lot of time it's related to father and father one. This is what I've learned. And phew, like, I've while my dad was alive, um, I never told him that I'm actually not okay with money anymore, and I'm not doing so well. Every single time when he would ask me, how are you? How are you doing? I'll be like, I'm great. I'm fantastic. And then he passed this year in March from a heart attack, and it was such a shock for all of us. And then I realized that I could not tell him the truth because I was so afraid. The same was how I was with you guys, those that are listening to this podcast. I was so afraid that if I'm gonna share the truth about where I'm at right now, that he's not gonna love me anymore and he's going to judge me. So after he passed, I realized that I had such a hard time to ask for help from him, even from him being on the other side. And one day I was just like meditating and praying after he passed. And I connected with him, and I just asked for help from him. And I told him that can you please help me in this area? And after I asked for help from him, I just started bursting in tears because it was such a big thing. I was afraid to be judged. I was afraid to show who I am in that moment, in that area of my life. So I want to invite you to dig deeper and see how has your relationship with your dad has been, and what have you learned from your family around money? What have you seen? What have you perceived as being good and bad? Because another thing that came up for me and came through was that my mom was judging a lot my dad for just working, and then when he would get home he would just rest. My mom would call him that he's lazy or comfortable, and I made it mean that it's not good to rest. So I had a hard time resting before, and in these last 2 years I had to learn how it is to also be, because I put the value on I deserve to be loved. I deserve to have something only when I do. And I constantly have to do something, to work, to be productive. If not, I'm not worthy of love. So these 2 years where I didn't work and I didn't make money and I wasn't as productive, it helped me break through that ceiling that no, we are actually worthy of love, worthy of having, no matter what. Even if you just allow yourself to relax and seeing the importance of resting. Resting is as important as working. There is not such a thing that you constantly have to just bust your ass off and work. No, rest. And when you allow yourself to rest, that's when you allow yourself to also receive and feel that. And then it was shown to me how I was having a conversation with my partner, and he started asking me questions like, who have you not forgiven? He asked me. And I was like, what do you mean? I have no one that I haven't forgiven. He's like, no, you have someone that you haven't forgiven, and it can be yourself too, because debt is associated with holding grudges, with not forgiving someone. And I was like, I didn't know that. And then he started asking me questions, and he's like, is it your dad? I was like, no, I don't feel anything around my dad. Is it your mom? No. Is it yourself? I was like, no, I have done so much work on this, to forgive. And then he said, is there anyone that maybe you have a hard time looking at their pictures? You have a hard time thinking about them. You have a hard time. And then it just came through. My partner, my life partner who passed away. And I just started crying. I was like, whoa, I haven't fully forgave my life partner, the way how he has showed up on that cancer journey, because I judged him for feeling like he didn't do his 100% on that journey, like the way he has showed up. And then I couldn't fully forgive him for actually leaving. And it was such a big revelation. And then he asked me, like, have you started accumulating debt after he passed away? And I was like, yeah, I did. And I've never dealt with debt in my whole life. I never had debt. And then I started putting them together, and for you to also see that the energetic part is so, so important. And maybe this is going to help you as well. And ask yourself, is there someone that I haven't forgave in my life? And maybe it's you. And maybe it's you. And I went that day and did a breathwork session, and it was so, so powerful. I felt like throughout my whole body how I'm like, I forgive you. And in that session, I felt how I fully forgave him for the way he has showed up and for leaving, and then again forgiving myself for judging him, for not understanding at that time that he did the best he could. So a few things to recap, and I just have a little bit more to share with you. And I hope this is helpful for you. So, a few things to recap: accept where you are, take responsibility, change your consciousness around debt, and see who can you forgive, who do you have to forgive. Is it yourself, is it someone else? And then reach out to me if you need any exercises for forgiveness. I have a tons of them, and I would love to support you. And then the fifth step here, it's what is your relationship with money? And this came recently to me now as a download in my breath work, where I also received a download to do this podcast episode, and I was like, oh, I have been feeling it now for a long time, but I'm so terrified to do it. I'm so terrified to do it, but here I am, getting over my fears and doing it anyways. And it showed me how I stopped respecting money. So, because these past 2 years, I ignored them. I didn't look at them. I was afraid of them. I was afraid of money. And I would also look at it as like, oh, it's so hard to deal with money. It's so hard to make money. So it showed me how I didn't respect money anymore. And I was spending a lot, even though I wasn't working much in my business, I was spending a lot. I had a VA that I was paying a lot, a virtual assistant to help me with the podcast. I had like tons of subscriptions for my business and personal. And I would just, I would spend money just like that without thinking that I'm actually not really having much coming in, even though I had some money coming in from my Airbnb. But I'm like, I don't have a lot coming in. And I still had some clients here and there, but nothing major compared with how much I was spending. And it just showed me so clearly that you did not respect money. And then it showed me like step by step in the breath work on what I have to do to start respecting money, to start shifting my relationship with money, even though I have been, working so much on that and constantly looking like, what are my beliefs about money? What do I feel around money? And on and on and on. There are so many different layers that I want to invite you also to see and look at. And it showed me start canceling subscriptions. And I literally, in the level 2 training, I canceled one of my subscriptions for my business that had my website, had, some of my courses. And I was like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I've been wanting to do it for months. I just didn't had like the guts to do it because it felt like a part of me is dying with the identity and with the business. So I was shown to like cancel subscriptions, then create a budget with the income that I have coming in, because I still have a little bit of some income. I'm not gonna say a little bit. I still have some income coming in from my house and then some of my clients, and create a budget instead of like spending whatever and however. And then ask. It was shown to me the importance of asking, because this, like, I have been giving so much in my coaching, on my social media, on my podcast. And it's so easy and so comfortable to just give, 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 give. Here I am giving. And it's been so hard to receive and to ask. And I was like, this is next for me. It's like truly next to shift my relationship, to change my relationship with how I feel around money and how worthy I feel to receive. And this is for you as well if you're listening right now. And ask yourself, how do you feel around asking and receiving. And it's easier to receive if people just gonna offer to you. It's still hard for a lot of people, but for me, it's been easier to just receive if someone would just offer. But to ask when it's not offered, like that's next level. And it was shown to me to create a donation link. And for those that want to the podcast that want to support my journey, to do a donation at any amount. So that's coming now that I finished with my level 2 training, and I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna do it in a way that still feels good to me, because it's like so many like beliefs around that as well. I know I'm here to create a big mission. I'm here for a big work, for big impact, and I know I will be very, very abundant financially. And that right now, where I'm still at in this moment, is just a moment in time. It's just a chapter in my whole book that it's helping me help you and everyone that comes across my way on my journey. Wow, this is big. This has been big to share all of this with you. And I'm looking forward to opening up more and more about this and continue sharing with you how my journey is going with going on the other side of having so much of abundance for the value already received. And I'm going to start implementing what I shared with you, like cancel subscriptions, create a budget, create a donation link. Like all of those things are coming. And I'm excited and I feel so good for sharing this journey with you. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening, for being part of this journey, for growing together, because that's how I look at it. And if you enjoy this episode, if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment. It always helps me, and it helps me keep going, knowing that it truly helps. It helps you and it helps many other souls out there. And send me an Instagram message and let me know what you took away from this episode. How was it? Oh, to listen to it, to be here with me. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I believe in you. And I will see you soon. Bye, beautiful souls.
Thanks for tuning in to Spiritual Changemakers podcast. To stay connected and help us reach more people like you, please subscribe, follow, and leave a comment. Join our community of spiritual changemakers on social media to connect with like-minded individuals and continue the conversation. Remember, the power to create positive change is within you. Keep showing up as your best self, and let's keep the magic of change alive. Until next time.